Hello, my name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach and the host of the Take Your Life Back Today show. As an addiction recovery coach, I want to share something with you, and let me be crystal clear to leave an everlasting impact upon you. Just imagine being buried alive. You're in a coffin, but you know you're not dead. You don't know how to get out of that coffin, so you tried lifting the lid, but the enormous weight upon the lid prevents you from opening the lid. You just think you're going to die, but then you say, maybe if I bang on the lid, that maybe I can unsettle the dirt and somebody might start digging their way down to you. This is what it's like to find yourself at the lowest point of alcohol and drug addiction. You know you need help. You know you can't do it on your own, but you don't know where to get help. In reality, there are people staying right by your grave. You just don't know that. You just think you're going to die. Usually, though, people don't think about death when they're habitually abusing drugs and alcohol. In order to feed an addiction, you have to be great at repressing the fear of death. I often ask you, my audience, did it ever cross your mind that while you were abusing drugs and alcohol that maybe, just maybe, you might overdose and take something that was given to you by the Lord Jesus Christ, called life, away from you? More selfishly, you take your life away from the people that love and care for you most. People like your grandchildren, your children, your mother, your father, your husband, your wife. With this, let me leave one last thought. Don't be like the person I just read about on these index cards that waited until it was too late. Instead, be the person that picks up the phone, calls me at 844-405-HELP, and I promise you I will help you take back your life before your life is gone. People like Larry Geis from the Geis Academy at 516-458-2741, www.odysseyconsultant.org. Larry Geis has over 30 years experience as a life and addiction recovery coach. Larry and I always tell people like you, it doesn't matter where you've been, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. What matters most is that you're here, you want it better today, and you want a brighter and happier tomorrow. It all starts with you. It all starts with you. Stop denying that you have a problem. And then you get a hold of people like Larry at 516-458-2741. And once you have Larry or myself or any life or addiction recovery coach, you need to reach for your higher power and say, God, I need help. God, help me with my addiction. Help me with my depression. Help me with my low self-esteem. In conjunction with God coming into your heart and an addiction recovery coach or a life coach, we meet with you together and we make a whole person of you. But it all starts with you. And you know, when we go to bed at night, we always have slippers that we leave at the edge of our bed on the floor. Well, tonight, folks, let's start the right way by pushing those slippers under your bed. And in the morning, when you wake up and you have to retrieve those slippers to put them on, when you go on your knees to retrieve them from under the bed, while you're on your knees, make that a time for prayer. Make that a time to ask for mercy. Make that a time to ask for forgiveness. And make that a time to thank God for another day on this beautiful earth. Put on your slippers and walk with God. Today, it is my mother's 1-month anniversary. She died May 31st, 2016, tragically hit by a truck. Although there aren't 31 days in June, today is July 1st, so it's officially 1 month. And what better way to celebrate her life on earth and her first month in heaven than for me to kind of go over a couple things with you, folks. Let me just adjust the camera a little bit. I just want to go over a couple things with you. In both sudden death and anticipated death, there is a pain. However, while the grief is not greater in sudden death, hold on one second, let's go over here, because I want to make sure that this is all just perfect, okay? The capacity to cope is diminished. Grievers are shocked and stunned by the sudden loss of their loved one. Their loss is so disruptive that recovery is almost always complicated. This because the adaptive capacities are so severely assaulted and the ability to cope is so critically injured that functioning is seriously impaired. Grievers are overwhelmed. If you are such a griever, you probably are suffering extreme feelings of bewilderment, anxiety, self-reproach, and depression, and you may be unable to continue your normal life. You had no preparation and no time to gradually absorb the reality that the world was about to change dramatically in your life. Instead, there was a sudden of destruction. The world you used to know has now changed. There was no gradual transition nor time to make changes in yourself or expectations about your life or your world. In sudden death, you are called upon to face a massive gap between the way the world should be with your loved one alive and the world the way it is with your loved one gone. The person whom you loved and who provided you with security is taken away without any warning. This is a major violation of your expectations. Your sense of the world and the control is assaulted. This is not to say that these issues are not confronted by those whose loved ones' death was anticipated. The difference is that they had a valuable time, a valuable period of anticipation that placed the death in context with events that were predictable and made sense to you. Although they experienced pain when their loved one died, they could see what caused the death. They could see how the person might have been suffering. Ideally, they had been preparing for the death and dealing with the feelings about this maybe for quite some time. They were able to finish unfinished business with their loved ones, to say, I love you, and to do things that were wanted to do for a person before they died. While there certainly are many problems and emotional demands associated with losing a loved one in an anticipated death, at least when the death comes, the grievous coping capacities have been directed toward dealing with the expectable end. The loss makes sense at that point. After a sudden loss, the loss doesn't make sense. The critically important understanding of what happened is missing. The sudden shock of losing someone we love without warning so stuns us that we cannot comprehend what exactly has transpired. Even today, a month later, I am still baffled exactly what happened. I've received bits and pieces from the police and, as of yesterday, district attorney. But what exactly happened? There is no video, no camera that can tell me exactly what happened, but there is God. He knows exactly what happened. Consequently, if your loved one died suddenly, you may be unable to grasp the situation and find it difficult to understand the death and why it happened. Accepting that the death happened can be a difficult thing, even if you intellectually recognize what happened. The death may continue to seem inexplicable for a long period of time. You repeatedly will have to go over the story of the accident the way it happened actually, over and over and over again in your mind, in your head, and maybe even in your heart. Because you were not prepared for the death, and it had no understandable context, you will try to deal with your lack of anticipation by putting the loss into a series of events. You may find yourself looking back at the time leading up to the death and searching for clues that could have been indicating to how it happened. In this case, there were no clues. My mother crossed a road, not even a major road, and was tragically run over by a white Dodge Ram. For example, one woman looked back at the days preceding her husband's sudden fatal heart attack and perceived warnings she had missed initially. This tendency to reconstruct events in your mind in order to allow your some anticipation of the death is quite common. In an attempt to restructure what happened so that it seems that you had some inkling of the death was going to happen had we just stopped by her house and driven her somewhere. That's what I say all the time. How many times have my wife and I always called and said, listen, do you need a ride? But that particular day we couldn't because my wife was working. So I didn't call her to say, do you need a ride? Or I wish we would have been able to stop by her house and maybe taken her shopping before she was brutally, tragically run over by a truck. This retrospect construction of events makes the situation even more unmanageable. However, problems arise when you hold yourself responsible for not perceiving cues that were actually either unpredictable or non-existent prior to the death. Frequently, grievers react emotionally and respond to what they perceive as unmet responsibility. One woman felt inordinate guilt for many years for not recognizing that her mother had been having difficulty climbing a staircase. After her mother died suddenly from a burst aneurysm, the daughter felt that she should have recognized that the mother's impairment and known it meant that something was wrong, that she couldn't climb those steps. However, unless this woman had been a doctor and had run tests on her mother, there was really no way that she could have known. But the signs were there. With my mother, there were no signs, although for years I've been saying to be careful crossing roads, but there were no direct signs. There is plenty of guilt because I didn't go there. Plenty of guilt because we didn't give her a ride. Circumstances didn't allow that, and I know God forgives me for that. For us, survivors who loved ones that die suddenly, grief symptoms tend to persist longer. The physical and emotional shock that is normal part of the grief process appears to be more intense and more long-lasting when it is a sudden death. This may further demoralize you as you're trying to understand what really happened to you and to cope with the drastically altered world, in addition to dealing with your feelings of the loss and grief. You have the same grief tasks that all mourners do, whether they knew something was going to happen or they didn't. But you must cope with the extra stress that leaves you relatively more depleted and in a disadvantage. If you have lost a loved one from sudden death, you know you had no chance to say goodbye and no opportunity to finish unfinished business with your loved one. I have to say there was no unfinished business between my mom and I. We both had a full understanding of how we felt about each other, and we are a whole when it comes to that. Most probably these are major issues from you. The lack of time to bring this important relationship to positive close causes much anguish to those of us whose loved one dies without warning. So, God, if you have not closed your issues with your parents or any loved one, it can happen like this where they're gone. Resolve the issues you might have. We wish we could have known in order to say or to do what we wanted to. As what some people say, we wish we could have just had one more brief moment with our loved one to tell them that we love them, apologize for how we might have acted or hurt them, explain why we treated them the way we did in the past, or let them know that what they really mean to us. You, yes you, may feel a profound loss of security and confidence in the world. After all, you have been taught a dramatic lesson. Loved ones can be snatched away without warning. You may always wait another loss to befall. Research has shown that widows whose husbands died suddenly are slower to move towards remarriage, since they are unwilling to risk future anticipating loss again for themselves or their children. Avoidance and anxiety eventually can lead to states of anxious withdrawal, since the world has become such a frightening, unpredictable place. In some ways, the consequences of losing a loved one to sudden death can last a lifetime, while for some mourners this can be evidenced in chronic grief or persistent anxiety in which security and confidence never totally return. For others, the consequences are less dramatic, though no less powerful. This awareness that you can lose someone without warning does not have to be a negative. It can prompt you to deal with your loved ones in a timely manner, starting today. It can help you not put off until tomorrow the things that you should say, the things you should do today. It may assist you in making sure that you don't have to any unfinished business with the people that you love most, in case you should lose them suddenly the way we did our mother. If your loved one died from a sudden death, you know tomorrow is promised to no one, so make the changes today. This awareness can also help you keep in mind that whatever is important in life, so you don't get lost in the trivial matters and to lose sight of the things that are the most important to you. It is ironic, but positive consequences of sudden death can make you appreciate life more than you ever thought you would appreciate life. This does not mean that you should seek out such a loss in order to teach yourself a lesson, because God only knows that wouldn't be the right thing. but it does let you know that you can pull something meaningful out of each and any, hopefully only, tragedy you might have experienced in life. May 31st at 3:05 on Roberts Road, Crossroad William Floyd Parkway in Shirley, New York, my mother was tragically run down by a white Dodge Ram. I commend my sister, who yesterday posted on Facebook that she forgives this particular person. I haven't come to that point yet. I know that it was an accident by all accounts that have been told to us. But until I have that video tape enhanced, until I have all the facts right in front of me, I cannot find it in my heart to forgive him yet. However, as a Christian, I know that if he repents and turns to the Lord, and that God will forgive him. That is the strength of God, to be able to forgive like that. That is the weakness in myself, not to be able to forgive yet. Not to say I won't forgive, but I need to have the facts. I need to have everything presented in front of me at the end of the day to make my decision whether I can forgive the person that took my mama away May 31st, 2016, 3:05 on Roberts Road, Shirley, New York. Until I have those facts, I move forward. I move forward with the knowledge that I was able to depart from my mother, knowing how much we loved each other so much. No unresolved issues whatsoever. This is why I'm asking, begging you, that if you have any resolved issues with anyone that you love, take care of them now. Don't wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow might never be here for either one of you. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I wish my mother a happy first anniversary in heaven, and I hope we all can agree that she was a beautiful woman, a beautiful soul, and may God bless you.